So I'll count it off.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Just twice go. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the rehearsal room. Nick here.
Aaron's here.
I had to enunciate the rehearsal room just to make sure.
In case you thought you were on another podcast with Nick and Aaron.
Yeah, this is the linguistics podcast. Welcome back, folks. We're going to do another one of our lists, keeping true with our genre directors list. We've done, let's see, action.
Yes.
Adventure. Comedy. Drama. And
here we are.
Here we are at letter F. I know there's an E in between those, but I don't know that E.T. movies are
enigmatic.
Yeah.
I just learned that word. I don't know what it means.
Embogia. So I don't know. Make up words. Environmentally friendly movies.
There we go.
This week we're gonna tackle fantasy.
Yes.
Which I could not be any more tickled pink or brownish pink. This is one of my absolute favorite genres of movies. But like some of the other movies that we've kind of talked about, it's very hard finding a director who's directed multiple fantasy movies.
Yes, also trying to keep it out of the sci-fi realm also.
Yes. Yeah, so I think we should famously put up some of our guidelines.
I think for me, I tried to keep it to, or usually we try to do a three movie minimum.
Yeah.
I defied that with at least one of mine.
Okay.
Quite frankly, if you want 10, it's going to be hard. The other one that for me was trying to, as I know we will eventually get to, sci-fi, trying to keep sci-fi for the most part out of the fantasy so I can keep them separate, which is much harder than it sounds.
Very much so, because sci-fi is an offshoot of fantasy.
For sure.
Both of them go hand in hand,
Yes.
in lovable hand.
Well, especially I think, at least for me,
yeah.
especially when you consider what it is I watch.
Okay, yep.
You know what I mean? Like there's an omission on mine that may not be on yours that I think a lot of people would have on theirs.
Okay.
I've just never seen any of his movies, and the guy clearly is about fantasy in a lot of what he does. But again, I've not seen them. So there is definitely that too. And one of the ways I looked it up too was, I cheated with a little IMDb to give me an ideas. And what I definitely found is apparently dark fantasy is definitely something I'm into.
Oh, yeah, dark fantasy.
I saw that
yeah.
attached to a lot of the films that I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm into apparently dark fantasy. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that I looked up was kind of like, okay, how are we going to define fantasy, or how do others define fantasy ultimately? Right. One of the things that I think helped me a little bit was it did talk about a lot of times it has to do with like folklore.
Yep.
So you can find stuff that's like, old wives' tales, folklore, the mountain kind of folklore stuff about this little monster that lives in the cave or something like that. So that helped kind of narrow some of it down for me. I think another one it crossed for me a lot of times, and I tried not to, but I still felt like some of it fit, superheroes. Technically normally we think superhero, we go action. Well, of course, because superheroes do action.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wouldn't watch a Superman where he's just lounging around, but at the same time, I need to see him save the world.
That's in part 4 when he's at the bar.
Yeah, right. But it is to say, those technically are fantasy. Like they are mythical creatures, if you will. So, yeah, this was a tough one for me. I got to be honest. Drama I thought was going to be my hardest. This one, although I will say, another one of those ones where comedy did that kind of thing too, where immediately out of the box, there was probably my top 4 that I went, got him. And then everything after was like, oh, shit, where am I going from here? You know what I mean? So, but again, also fun to kind of look and go like, you're right, the disappointment of, I say this probably every episode, but I think it's worth saying is, back in the old Hollywood days, it's like, look, man, this is your day to direct this.
Yep.
You didn't go,
Yep.
well, I'm more of a, no. You're more of a, you want a paycheck, you're going to direct
You're going to
this.
do what we say you do.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them that is not on my list, which if we were doing movies, would have definitely made my list, was like Victor Fleming. He directed Wizard of Oz.
Sure.
I mean, in many ways, could you think of a bigger fantasy film, right? Or certainly one that's as influential
Sure.
and as long-lasting. And yet you look at the rest of his resume, and it's like Western, drama,
Yep.
crime noir.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, yeah, because he just did whatever he was hired to do. You know?
Yeah. So I will also say this.
Please.
Because there is such a kind of overlap
Mm-hmm.
on many of these, I'm not going to be opposed if one of your selections, or even one of my selections,
I got you, yeah, same.
if others see that as a, wait, that's sci-fi. Because, and let me
Please,
just get this out.
please.
So if there are more fantastical elements,
I hear you.
you know,
I
then
hear you.
it's a fantasy movie.
I hear you.
Right?
Yes.
I will use one as an example.
Please.
There was a Will Smith movie where he fought like elves and orcs in LA. And it's a fantasy movie, right? It's a modern movie. It's fantasy.
Yeah. Is that the one where he's the cop? And
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a noir kind of, right?
Yes.
So that one kind of falls into both the fantasy and the sci-fi elements because
Sure.
it's also very futuristic,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So if that director who I forgot managed to direct a couple of other fantasy movies, that would qualify.
Yeah, and I have a few that I think might, or one in particular that might be a little bit of a stretch for some people, but as far as I'm concerned, I think as you said, that's a great definition of it.
Yeah.
The fantastical, I believe, outdoes the scientific part of it.
Yeah, yes.
You know, one of the ones I saw, sci-fi, for instance, and a guy who I wanted to put on the list just didn't have enough, was like Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
You know, and you go like, okay.
Yep.
Jurassic Park is definitely, you could say, some fantasy, but it is more about the science of
sci-fi.
how I made the dinosaurs.
Right.
A Minority Report, there's definitely some fantasy in it, but it is more about the science of precog and cops and on it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So those are the ones where you just go like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I can, and it is funny because even when you look up lists, like, you know, top 10 greatest sci-fi or fantasy movies, 9 times out of 10, they do put sci-fi movies.
Oh, yeah.
And most people will put sci-fi fantasy /
Yes.
It's very rare the two are separated.
It's like action adventure.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. It totally makes sense.
Of course.
Yes, I think yes. On and again, the number one thing to always remember too is these are our lists.
This is our list. This is the rehearsal room list.
This is what we, and especially in these lists, these are the things we enjoy.
Yeah.
These are the things
trademark and registered.
Right. I mean, and I would also argue to some degree, maybe we're bigger influences on our love of so far. You know, like one that I definitely thought for a second, but again, more sci-fi than fantasy, like Star Wars.
Yep.
Like the impact of that in my life, I can't. It's immeasurable, and yet. Got to be more sci-fi than fantasy, considering there
more
is fantasy.
sci-fi, but that is also, famously it's argued that it's a space opera.
Absolutely,
right.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, well now we're getting into space operas.
Well,
like,
listen,
there's no singing in it.
This is much like music. We can start chopping these things into very tiny slices.
They didn't have the proverbial fat woman that sings, it's it's more of a Jabba and he's a Hutt.
Max Greedo did all right.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
yeah, we can slice these things and dice these things all day long. But when we keep them to the bigger genres, it does help a little bit. But this one was probably the one I felt was the thinnest slice, where you're like, whew, I am really working with some tough ones here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But fun nonetheless. Just because there's some of them I did not even know this guy directed all of those that I enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like I said, these are always really fun. If nothing else, they're lessons in, what old Hollywood was, as opposed to our tours that come in the 70s and go, this is what I direct.
Yeah, and I will say too, like there's a lot of directors with a lot of really staple movies are getting left out.
Yeah.
Like I went back and I was like, okay, well, for instance, Dragon Slayer is one of my absolute favorite movies.
Dude, Krull was another
one.
Krull,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, those reek of fantasy.
Yep.
And yet,
yeah.
I mean, another one. I don't know. Maybe he's on your list. I'd be shocked, but Never Ending Story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to make a list of fantasy movies that are certainly ones in my life.
Yeah.
And Neverending Story isn't going to be on here. But when you look at his IMDb, you realize like an amazing director, but Das Boot and Air Force One are not fantasy films.
Movies. You are not.
You know, a great film, amazing, you know, but not, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's this weird little like, I can't believe I have to omit this one, but unfortunately there's not enough of the rest.
Well, also one of my all-time favorite movie.
I was wondering about this one. Okay,
is not going to be present, you know, because the movie is directed by John Milius. Right. The movie being Conan the Barbarian. Right.
But unfortunately,
he only had one movie,
which is ironic because he's my 10 is the guy who directs the next one. Actually had just enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it is like I said, you do find these weird people like, I've never heard of this motherfucker in my life. But you realize like, oh wow, but 3 of his movies had a huge impact on me. Yeah. That's kind of cool too to look at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, wow, I may not have known your name, but thank you. You know what I mean? So these are always fun and interesting. Sometimes they definitely I was definitely like, I am stuck on 6 here, man. You might be getting some blanks on. What's your number 10? Nothing. Go ahead. You're next.
Yeah, you're next.
You know what I mean? Like, fuck it. We're doing a top 5. You know. But it's fun because the research part of it, the looking into it, seeing what people consider these genres, and then also some people do that. Here's my top 10, and you just kind of like you see someone be like, right on, yeah, and then the others like, get the fuck out, what did this, get out of here,
Yeah.
So it's always fun to do it, but can be more of a challenge. I guess it's just one of those things like. You and I are very knowledgeable when it comes to movies in many ways. But boy, oh boy, we start doing stuff like this and you realize like, man, do I got a lot to learn, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. So honorable mentions?
I did not. Like I said, I struggled to get 10 that I thought were worthy of being honest on my list. So unfortunately, I had no honorable mention other than a few movies. I mean, certainly, again, I will. Wizards of Oz, Princess Bride, Never-Ending Story. Conan the Barbarian. These are massive fantasy
Dragon
movies.
Slayer again.
Kroll, all those massive movies that were huge in my childhood, especially. Oh, another one. Yes.
What's the other? There was another one. There is actually a movie called The Sorcerer. The Sword and the Sorcerer.
I think I know. Yes, I think I saw this title. Yes, and you go like, massive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And yet, unfortunately, didn't do enough of those to qualify. So more movies than I think directors that are honorable mentions, and ones that I just feel like, God dang, they really should be on this. If I'm being true to myself, you know what I mean?
Of course.
And like I said, I think there's another one that I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it makes your list. I'd like to see how you finagle.
I put up one that I think people are going to be like, you're kind of struggling to mention him, but
I understand.
But by all of our guidelines here that we're setting down, he qualifies.
Okay.
And I think it's important to have this one name on there just because of who he is.
Okay.
Okay, but I do have some honorable mentions if you don't mind. Ron Howard.
Yes.
He's got a bunch of really fantastical elements in movies. I just don't think they're either hard fantasy enough.
Yeah, like I saw Splash was one that people put. Which, there's definitely, you're dealing with mermaids, myths and legends.
Which
I give you that.
It's really funny that you brought that particular example up because that's going to play into one of my next honorable mentions.
Okay.
So Ron Howard has obviously his whole catalog. If you don't know who he is, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I would say another one, almost like a Spielberg. They're overly successful, so people think less of them.
Yeah.
But when you go back and look at what they've done, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got a gigantic catalog, I mean.
And varied also.
Varied, yeah. I mean, people can technically look at a movie like Forrest Gump and say, well, that's fantasy. Which, yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a drama comedy.
Exactly. That is a dramedy.
Just because people believe me, I can, as we were joking when we were talking about this, I consider myself a bit of a fantasy director too in my own mind. But those are different ones, and nobody wants the top 10.
Yeah. Nobody wants our actual list.
Yeah, we can all do fantasy, but again, it's like, I'm with you. I think you need myths and legends, fantastical creatures.
Yep.
You need stuff like that. It needs to feel like another world.
Right.
In certain ways, if you can achieve that, an alternate universe to some degree, that's where I feel more fantasy is in there.
Right.
But Ron Howard's. He was one I put on my immediate list, but eventually had to take off. I just didn't feel I had enough on there.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg is another one of my honorable mentions. Hook, exactly. Hook. I mean, E.T.
to a degree.
To a degree. He had another one that
there was one. Well, like I almost did it with him. I was like, well, War of the Worlds, but not Minority Report. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. If you're not going to do Minority Report, then you can't do War of the Worlds.
Yeah, because famously, War of the Worlds is a sci-fi book.
Absolutely, right?
And
hugely sci-fi.
Hugely sci-fi.
But you could also elements of fantasy.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
this is where this like thin fucking Ginsu knife slice comes in. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
So the last honorable mention I have is Robert Eggers.
Okay. He's on my list. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So here's why he's almost made my list too.
I got you.
The only reason I didn't is because while I love his movies,
absolutely,
he's not one of my favorite top 10.
Okay,
right?
No.
And it's because he's done The Lighthouse, which is about mermaids.
Yes.
Right?
Ultimately, yes.
Ultimately. Nosferatu,
yes.
Which even though it's horror themed, it's still like fantasy
it's
horror.
Fantastical in a lot of ways. It's almost overly dramatic in that kind of, Victorian age way. Yes.
And also, it's something that I'm going to use a lot for some of these other directors. It's very surrealist.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So surrealism is very much, starts kind of dipping its toes in the fantastical waters.
Well, certainly,
right?
yeah. I mean, I know one guy who's probably going to make your list. I mean, he may be the king of all surreal movies. You know what I mean when it comes to this. I know he's a favorite of yours. I don't know if he makes this list, but he's one of those ones where I went, he's the second one where I was like, well, yeah, he should make, but I've never seen any of his movies, so
gotcha. Okay.
I'm not going to lie to myself. Yeah, Eggers actually came in at the end where I was looking up fantasy movies, and it came up with The Witch, and I went,
The Witch.
Oh. What? Really?
It's a period piece, but it is a fantasy movie.
Dark fantasy.
Yeah, dark fantasy.
Okay. And then I started looking at all of his movies, and everything has it labeled as dark fantasy.
Yeah, even The Northman.
Which I realized, well, yeah, if we're kind of going after the whole kind of Norse mythology, then yes. And he fights gods. He fights
gods. He fights a witch.
Like
There's a
demons
witch.
and witches.
Bjork is a witch. Yeah.
So yeah. Like I said, this one's the tightest one of that we've done so far. I think sci-fi, horror, those are going to be much easier for me. Than
we say that, but the horror one, I already started looking at some of those, and I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be fun. It's going to make me work for this one."
Well, you are much deeper into horror than I am, so for me, I think it will be easier because I kind of already have an idea. Like, if this was 20 years ago, I probably would have just been like, Wes Craven and the guy who directed one of those Jason movies. Now we have our tours who are making 3, 4, 5 films that are ones I absolutely love. So it's going to be easier for me in that way.
Yeah.
Your problem is just trying to narrow it down to 10.
Yeah, that's
I think my problem will be not that at all. You know what I mean? So I like I said, this one was definitely any other honorable mentions?
Outside of those, no.
Okay.
That was it. So number 10, let's go ahead and start with you.
All right, on. My number 10, everybody knows this guy. I don't even have to explain. Robert Fleischer, of course. Anyway, yeah, who the fuck knows who that is? Well, I didn't know who that was, but he directed Conan the Destroyer, Red Sonja, and way before any of that was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the one with Kirk Douglas that Disney put out. I mean, Jules Verne, sci-fi, adventure, fantasy, he is kind of, one of those early guys on that. So and as a kid, we watched the shit out of that 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'm sure some daycares that probably played it 24/7, anything to shut us up. You know what I mean? So those, and again, Conan the Destroyer, Red Sonja, those were big ones when I was growing up. I mean, again, that fits it right there. Granted, Conan the Barbarian certainly was a bigger impact than the other two, but at the same time, that was required viewing as far as my father was concerned with the Conan movies. And then, okay, now we're on to Red Sonja, especially because Schwarzenegger's in it. You go, oh, well, we have to continue the Schwarzenegger route. You know what I mean? And then 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. As I said, my parents were also an early adopter of cable. We had the Disney Channel, so that was an easy thing to put on with all of us so we could watch as a family. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was one of those ones. Treasure Island was one of those ones kind of thing. He didn't direct that, but you know what I mean? All those kind of Disney-esque take a Swiss Family Robinson.
Yep.
So it was always part of that kind of just watching, and the impact that those had, and it was again interesting because I did look at Conan the Destroyer like, well, if I can't get Milnius, please tell me the Destroyer guy may have directed more than one, and sure enough, I was like, okay, cool, because that was kind of that was a kind of a ringer there at the very end. Like, good God, I was stuck on, like I said, I got stuck on 5 for a while, and I got stuck on 9 for even longer. Yeah. So, thank you, Robert Fleischer. God bless you. May your movies live in eternity, because they certainly do for me. That's for sure. Yeah, no, he was kind of a tough one for me to leave out because of the Conan the Destroyer. Sure. And while I do like his other movies that he did that kind of are in this genre. Yeah, because he's got, I think, if I remember correctly, I believe he has some like Sinbad movies. I think he has some pirate adventure movies and stuff like that. So he did seem like it was kind of his thing to do these things. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so in that way, if you had seen other ones, there actually was a lot to choose from with him. I was actually very surprised in that way, especially for an older director. Sure. Because as we've talked. But yeah. I can imagine not having your Conan on here was tough. It hurts. It's very painful. Yeah. Under the circumstances, I totally understand. Understand. And to be honest with you, if it hadn't been 20,000, because I saw Red Sonja and Conan, and I was like, come on, baby, give me one more. I saw 20,000 Leagues. I thought, okay, good. I feel like I'm being honest to myself. That Kirk Douglas one. I mean, it's one of those ones. I believe it's on the Disney Channel now. It's one of the first ones. Like. Go back real quick. Another director I saw directed Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and I thought, okay, come on, baby. Nope, no more. Son of a bitch. You know what I mean? So, it was nice to find this guy. Yeah. How about your number 10? So my number 10 is Tim Burton. Awesome. Again, a lot of fantastical elements. Oh, yeah. And while it does kind of lean towards the darker, maybe even horror, it's just dark storytelling. Yeah. Right? Sleepy Hollow. Beetlejuice, which if you're being scared by Beetlejuice, I don't know what to tell you, right? It's comedy, but it's also fantasy element. That the other two got to see, though. That is true. That is true. We did see the stuff shooting out of his cheeks. That is true. That was pretty creepy, but no, he's obviously on my list, and one of those ones that when I knew we were getting here, he was one of those guys I already knew was going to be on my list. Where I had no idea, but and I would say. For me, probably one of the first person to introduce the idea, even if I didn't know it at the time, dark fantasy. Yes. This idea that you could do fantastical shit, but it could feel like, oh my God, where the hell are we? You know what I mean? As opposed to, princesses and unicorns. It's so beautiful, Yeah. Tim Burton has not just a great storyteller, but he does create his own worlds. Yeah. I think everyone knows when it's a Tim Burton film just by the feel of it. Oh yeah, right. Even when he did Batman, you still were like, exactly. Batman or not, this is a Tim Burton movie. This is a Tim Burton movie. Yeah. And even for the Batman Returns, his fingerprints are all over that, to the point where when they made the toys, they were like, oh, these are Tim Burton toys. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Like nobody would have made the penguin look like that except for Tim Burton. For Tim Burton, right. That is a Tim Burton penguin in every sense of the word. Exactly. And even to make real penguins carry bombs and rocket launchers. That's so up his alley. Exactly. Yeah. No, fantastic one. Definitely one that is on my list, and huge impact. I mean, especially at our age. Yeah. He came out at the perfect time. Starting with Pee-wee's Adventure, which is very strange to think of, but which is also a fantasy movie. You could definitely put it that way, and it's fun to watch it because you know who's directing it, and yet his stamp is on it without the dark part of his stamp. That's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is the Odyssey. Yeah, no, so, great play. Told in a very different way. Merci beaucoup, Pee-wee. Merci beaucoup. So that was your that's my number 10. Number 10. Okay. So my number 9, again, I will not profess to know who this guy was, but I was delighted to find him. Anyone who knows me knows I very much like the Harry Potter movies. I didn't read the books. I don't read any books, let's be honest. But I didn't read the books, but I definitely tried watching the movies probably about the third or fourth, and I'm like, all right, I'll give this one a shot. And I'll be honest with you, I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, if I were a kid, I'd be all over these. No wonder these kids love these things. This would have been my Star Wars if I was that age. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I enjoy all of the movies. So David Yates is his name. He did the last 4 Harry Potter movies. Right. which you could argue are some of the better ones, in a lot of ways. Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and the Deathly Hallows 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Again, I very much enjoy those movies. I think they're well made all the way through. I mean, really, when you go back and look at some of the directors that have directed some of those Harry Potter films, they're like, God damn, these are like hardcore directors that are doing great stuff. This isn't, and even if you look at his resume outside of these 4 films, he's done some really great shit, but those 4, as I said, as a Harry Potter fan in general, or certainly for the movies, I don't dress up like them, well, sometimes, but but I enjoy those movies very much. And those last 4 were, I mean, the last 2 as a family, we went to go see them in the theaters. You know what I mean?
Right on.
I thought, okay, cool. Yeah. Because I mean, again, for modern day fantasy movies, Harry Potter, you can't get much bigger than that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And to do the last 4 and be some of the more,
they're doing something right.
Well, and to tackle those last 4 where you really I gotta land this plane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And did. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my number 9. How about yourself?
Mine is somebody who folks probably will think should be higher up, but again, these are 10, but they're all number 1s, right?
I got you.
Is Ralph Bakshi.
Okay.
Ralph Bakshi is famously for coming up with the rotoscope way of not just animating, but also filming his movies.
Okay.
Famously, he did the Lord of the Rings in like the 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
Also did a movie called Wizards.
Okay.
And probably the more well-known one is Fire and Ice.
Okay.
Firstly, if you look at his animation, it's very realistic because what they do is they just take film and animate over it.
Right. So they're actually filming people doing it,
doing the stuff,
and then animating and paint over it.
Yeah. So
I wonder why that did. Probably cost, but I wonder why that didn't catch on more.
Because he also had a 4th one. I mean, he's had a bunch of them. He did Fritz the Cat, Cool World, and stuff like that. Cool World was the one with what's his name? Brad Pitt and Kim Basinger.
And Kim Basinger. Yes.
Yeah. So like. That was maybe his attempt at like noir, adult noir,
certainly,
kind of, right? Yeah. And it was the cartoon becoming a real person, but she's like super maniacal, right?
Like the very adult version of Roger Rabbit. In some ways.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, which Roger Rabbit had some rotoscope animation in there as well. So it was an animation style that I think was awesome. I don't know that it was cost effective.
I would assume that's probably why. It'd be something to look into. But I like most things, I imagine it turns into cost. But it's very unique and it's of its own. Once you see it, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah, and so like in the 3 movies that I listed, Fire and Ice, the look of that just yells barbarian, crazy world. It's good versus bad, fire versus ice, good versus evil. Classic fantasy storyline. Wizards is another one where it's like the hero's journey. And then, of course, Lord of the Rings, he gives us our first look at somebody kind of, putting the names and the correct characteristics of these characters from these books into something that we can see and move around and
put
speak.
Visuals to it for
so I think Ralph Bakshi is one of the greater fantasy directors.
Yeah, those are
again. And also I just learned from Haifa, Palestine. So
interesting.
Yeah,
right on. And to be if nothing else, to innovate something too. Very cool.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
All right, so number 8. My number 8 is Henry Selick. Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, and what's it? Coraline.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, James the Giant Peach technically is taken from a book, but either way, fantasy as it is. I mean, kid lives in a peach. I mean, how much more fantasy do we get? You know what I mean? Nightmare Before Christmas. I know most people associate that with Tim Burton, but he's actually the guy who did. Tim Burton put his name on the top of it. So for people who don't know, because for many years I thought the same thing as everybody else. Like, oh, thanks, Tim.
Right.
It's like, Tim showed up and said, I like that. Keep going, guys. And it was more about this guy. Lately, he's been getting much more of his flowers, and well-deserved. Coraline. Absolutely love that. Well, I remember we took the kids to see that, bought it on DVD, came with the 3D glasses and everything. Yeah. We've watched the shit out of that.
Coraline's a cool movie.
It's so it's so unique, so weird, and yet pure fantasy and all of it. But again, very dark also. Where apparently this is where I tend to go to. You know what I mean? But those 3 movies alone, I think, are just like such. They're so individual in that you see it and you immediately know, like, oh it sticks with you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just like, also like, the stories. Again, James and the Giant Peach being a book, he didn't necessarily come up with that, but still, just like to be so weird in what all of it is. Like, wait, there's a guy who's in charge of Halloween that wants to be Santa. What the fuck are we talking about? And you watch it and go, got it, totally works. You know, and each town is its own thing. Each look is its own thing. You know, I love all that. You know, and so he was my my number 8. How about you?
My number 8 is Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Okay.
So
I knew he'd be on your list.
He popped up, before with his other stuff, which I think is more. I don't even remember where I put him before. But he has Endless Poetry, Dance of Reality, and his third fantastical movie is The Holy Mountain.
Right.
Which, the other two, I think they're a little bit harder for other people to kind of take in because they are very, very surrealist. Jodorowsky as a whole is a surrealist person. So if you think you have him down, like you don't, like I don't. I know I don't, Granted, the last two were difficult movies for me to get through because I still don't know what they're really about.
Gotcha.
Holy Mountain, probably his most famous.
Yeah.
Is... it's a little bit easier to decipher because at the end of the movie, he gives it away himself.
Okay.
But even though you don't know if that's the truth or not.
I gotcha.
But it is about self-discovery. It is about, kind of coming into your own skin, not relying on these outside forces that are depicted very familiarly, in religion. But it's also like the way the religion is being presented.
Right.
It's again, very fantastical.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if nothing else, and again, I've never seen any of his movies all the way through. I've seen enough. I know enough about him to know that it's also this thing where you go like, as you said, surreal. Where I don't feel like I'm on my planet watching anything that this guy's doing.
Yeah.
So wherever this exists, it's not here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that alone to me is fantasy. Just if you can create where I feel like I'm on another parallel universes, like there's familiarities. They're wearing clothing of fabric that I understand, but I've never seen anybody wear that. You know what I mean? Like that can be enough for me to include into fantasy, and certainly him. I figured he'd be on your list for sure.
Yeah.
That was one of those ones where that name came up, and I was like, well, I've just never seen anything from him. I'm not going to put him on my list, but he definitely deserves to be on the list if it's something you've seen for sure. Great one, no, for sure. What's this? So we're on number 7. Yes,
7. Yeah.
My number 7 is Tim Burton. Movie like Corpse Bride, the movie Sleepy Hollow, Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice. Even once he's produced to some degree, that movie 9. I don't know if you ever saw that.
That's a great
fantastic one. It's just like anything he puts his hands on to some degree is going to be dark, and it's going to be some fantastical shit. Excuse me, for good or for bad. Sweeney Todd, kind of good. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, hunk of shit. Alice in Wonderland. I didn't particularly see it, but my kid, when I was going over this, my daughter was like, "Oh, we love that. We think it's one of the better ones." Okay, good. Not surprised. He can be hit or miss on some stuff.
Right.
Even when he did that one where it was based on a true story, Big Eyes.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yes,
Still seemed almost to the point where you're like, are we sure this is real or is this Tim Burton? Because it feels Tim Burton, even though no, this happened long before Tim Burton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Even Ed Wood is weird.
Ed Wood is weird.
You know what I mean?
And I'm glad.
And again, it is real, but it feels fantastical.
Because it's almost more dreamy than actual biopic.
Another great word to use, yes, where you're watching it and the lens feels like there's a little Vaseline on there, where you're kind of like in a haze the entire time. Like, is this happening here? Is this? Yeah. And he's very good at doing that in many ways. And again, one of those guys as a kid, certainly seeing the Batmans and the Beetlejuices, going like, what is this? Like, okay, what world am I getting into? So a guy, again, maybe in his latter years, he's fallen off a little bit, at least shit that I like, you know what I mean? But man, the impact that guy had at one point, I mean, but with Batman alone, he was ruling Hollywood. He could do anything at that point. So,
for sure. Yeah.
Definitely mine. So you're number 7.
My number 7 is a Japanese director, animation again. It's kind of hard to stay away from animation and fantasy. But he is one half of Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
He is probably the lesser known half. His name is Isao Takahata.
Okay.
He had 3 movies that are standouts just because they're great movies. One is Pompoku, which is about a gang of dogs trying to save Tokyo, or like the areas outside of Tokyo from deforestation.
Okay.
And as you can imagine, these dogs all have personalities. They talk, so already there, that element, pushes it into. And then the way that deforestation is kind of characterized is, they're monsters. Like they're fighting off monsters.
I gotcha.
Right?
So I think animation a lot of times lends itself more to fantasy also. You can do more.
Big time, yes. So, and I did try to stay away from a lot more of the kind of traditional animation storylines, But I think the three, Ralph Bakshi is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do lean heavily into the fantasy.
Well, that was one of the ones, too, that I completely left off my list because I've never seen anything by them. My daughter was very disappointed nonetheless, was the Studio Ghibli stuff. That came up over and over and over.
Studio Ghibli is...
Because those movies are, the Kiki's Delivery Service and the
very magical movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they are fantasy in every sense of the word.
Yep.
So, yes, there was one of those ones where, boy, if I had seen those, my list would be a lot easier to make, for sure. Them and Jodorowsky were the two where I kept going, God damn it. At some point, I'm going to have to watch these just so I can have a better list.
I have a Jodorowsky box set.
I know. And again, he's one of those ones where it's like a lot of those ones where I know it's like, look, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it. I got to sit down, make time, because these guys aren't just making some popcorn shit.
Right.
They want you to pay attention.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of just, someday I hope to get to it. I really do.
Yeah,
but
So Takahata had a couple other movies. Tale of the Princess Kaguya, which is very much, it's about kind of a woman finding her place in the world, but it's told through a Japanese myth.
Okay.
And then the last one, which is probably the more famous one of his, is Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay.
Incredibly depressing movie, but it's, again, very dreamlike. The symbolism in the movie is just beyond nuts. And it's a hard movie to decipher, but it's very tragic because it is a war movie also.
Nice.
Studio Ghibli is famous for kind of taking on being really anti-war and being anti-war in their stance with the use of fantasy.
Okay.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a guy that would have been on my radar other than Studio Ghibli, but not surprised to see it on your list at all, considering. So number six. My number 6. This is where I one of the ones I cheated a little bit. We usually like to keep it to 3, but unfortunately I could not find a third in this man. But his impact with these two, and especially when it comes to fantasy in my life, I cannot keep him off, and that's Mr. Jim Henson. With The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, the 3 rule goes out the window because those two movies, I cannot tell you the impact they had on me growing up. And then the idea to take something that I already loved, Muppets, Sesame Streets, that kind of thing, and turn it into something that was as dark as The Dark Crystal.
For sure.
That scared the fucking shit out of you as a kid, and yet could still be a world completely unto itself.
Yeah.
You never saw anything like it. You know what I mean? And then Labyrinth to be so strange and weird with Bowie and the whole thing. I mean, that's one of my wife's all-time favorite movies.
That's a fever dream. That's a fever dream of a movie. Yeah.
And yet can still be something you can relate to in the sense of, careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Right? I just, like I said, Hanson's impact on my life in general, I think especially anybody in our age group is another one that I don't know if can ever be quantified.
Yeah.
And those two movies were absolutely massive in my growing up of the understanding of what fantasy could be and what you could do with it. And I just, like I said, I knew I had to put them on the list. I just felt like, damn, man, if you could just give me one more. I mean, technically, I guess you could call any Muppet movie a fantasy.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, the Muppets.
Because bears and ducks and chickens are walking around,
Yep.
I don't know what a gonzo is. So
I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah. It just, unfortunately, I wanted to keep it to what I knew was absolute fantasy.
For sure.
But I think those two alone, I'm sorry, he counts, in every sense of the word. So, that was my number 6. Again, huge impact Mr. Hanson has had on my entire life. But those movies, especially, like, wow, what a turn from, Muppets Take Manhattan,
Yeah. So my number 6 is Tarsum Singh.
Okay.
I know I've spoken about him before, but his fantasy movies are Mirror Mirror,
okay,
The Fall, and I just forgot the second one. Oh, Immortals.
Okay.
With a young Henry Cavill.
Yeah. The Fall, I did see make a lot of lists.
Yeah, The Fall is a beautiful movie, and that's the thing. He has a way with color, visuals. The storyline is kind of epic in its scale. Maybe
another trademark of a lot of these fantasies.
Yeah.
Also, there's an epicness to some of them.
Exactly. Yeah, and which I just remembered one of my left out honorary mentions, but I'll get to that afterwards. Tarsem Singh has beautiful storylines. They're very epic, but he knows how to humanize the characters to the point where you can kind of relate to some of them even.
Immortals would be the only one that I've seen, and I very much enjoy that.
Immortals is awesome.
It's great.
The Fall, Mirror might be another one of his tougher ones to kind of get into because it's one of his earlier ones too. But The Fall is just a beautiful movie because it's a story within a story. Like there is, it's basically being told by a person in a recovery hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's telling the story to a young girl.
Oh, yes.
And,
okay.
Yeah,
yes.
and in the story, it plays out in real life.
Right.
But every character in the fantasy part of the story is somebody in the real world of the guy and the little girl.
Almost like one that I'm sure will be on both of our lists, a little Baron guy. Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Very cool. Yes. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So number 5.
My number 5, we've already discussed him. He's an honorable mention for you. For me, when I discovered that we could call his shit dark fantasy, it was like, oh well, he's way up on the list now. Was Robert Eggers. I mean, his movies are massive in my world. I think he's. Again, I haven't seen one that I didn't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a theme that goes through all of them. There's a sense that you know it's his movie, but each one still feels individual in its own way. I cannot wait for this werewolf one. I am so psyched for this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, The Witch, Nosferatu, I love both. The Northman, I can never get enough of that movie. Never. Every time it comes on anything streaming, the world stops. It's time to watch The Northman.
Yeah.
I just, every shot in there is so amazing. I love the way he just does that one. And, again, myths and legends. I mean, if you're cutting up 8 dudes so you can make them look like the fucking horse of Sleipnir, to scare the shit out of people. These are myths and legends, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the glowing eyes of the wolf as he faces it. Bjork as the witch.
Yeah.
I mean, I take it all day long. And I think this is another one, we're very lucky right now where there's a lot of these, I keep using the word, but these are tours that are just like, I have a vision, I have a thing that I like to do, and people are allowing them to do it, and we are better for it to get to see these, they're not forced to go, yeah, but I don't have a romantic comedy in my, I don't want to do romantic comedies, you know what I mean? Yeah. Here it is, it's called Nosferatu. Where am I laughing? I don't know, but it's romantic.
Yeah.
But yeah, Robert Eggers, my number 5 for sure. How about you?
Mine is Peter Jackson.
Okay. Absolutely.
So I know normally trilogies don't count, right?
Come on. With this,
but I do have 3 separate entries. So he did The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
He did The Hobbit.
Yep.
And King Kong.
Yeah, I have seen technically King Kong. I've technically seen it. I probably slept through a good hour of it because it's like 3 fucking hours. Parts of it are, visually it's fucking great.
Yeah.
I think it's a little. We could probably cut out a little bit of it. You're kind of
I think it's one of those where he's just like I'm a name now.
Absolutely,
I'm a brand.
They said, look, here's a blank check. Do whatever the fuck you want. And unfortunately, there needed to be somebody who goes, why don't we pull that back just a little bit?
Yeah.
But again, as it is told, it's a King Kong movie. Like, boy, you're in for a ride, and it's a good one. And listen, I'm with you. I think though, again, I will because he's definitely on my list. He was one of those ones that, I already knew would be on my list. It wasn't a matter if, it was just a matter of where am I going to place him. As far as the trilogies are concerned, I think much like Mr. Henson, these are so impactful and I know Tolkien doesn't invent fantasy, but if there's anything that has continued to press modern fantasy, it's Lord of the Rings. It's definitely one of those, I guess you could say, pillars along the way. You know what I mean? So to me, the idea that you could bring any of those to film and kill it in the way you did, especially with the Lord of the Rings, that's enough for me, man. So you're going to get no argument with Mr. Jackson.
He does have other older movies which also technically qualify as fantasy.
Well,
Heavenly Creatures
or Frighteners was that?
Frighteners because it's more comedy than it is horror.
Yeah,
and in that world, this, the spirits kind of live amongst the living, where they interact with each other to a higher degree.
I gotcha.
Right, so it's like, okay, we're in ghost world where
because like I saw Ghostbusters make some fantasy lists, and it's like, okay, I mean,
technically, but it is also more comedy,
right, and way more sci-fi, and
right.
To me, it's almost like if I can find a scientific reason these things are happening, it's sci-fi. If no one can explain it, that's fantasy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Kind of thing. That's kind of, it may sound ridiculous to some, but that's kind of where I was drawing a little bit of a line too. In that way.
Because I did bring up the fact that I was going to include King Kong, and to one of my brothers, and they're like, "Well, that's a big monster movie. It's monsters." And I said, "Yes, but that's also." That's already an alternate world that we're in.
Again,
right?
you could make an argument that monsters are myths and legends.
Yeah,
so myths and legends are, whether it's a Godzilla, whether it's a King Kong, whether it's the devil, whether it's I think you could definitely do all.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to keep going backwards to somebody, but like one of the movies that I definitely went, oh yes, but again didn't do anything. We both seen this. We both love The Green Knight.
Oh yeah.
I mean, does anything deal with more myths and legends and weird shit and surrealism and fantasy and everything? And yet he didn't do anything else. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think King Kong totally fits. I don't think you have to include it to get Mr. Jackson on my list, but at the same time, I don't think it's you omitting it doesn't doesn't help or hurt.
Right.
I think it's if we're looking at its totality for sure.
Yeah. So number 4.
Number 4 for me again. I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think it's there, which was M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay.
When I look at things like Lady in the Water, and to me, the series of Unbreakable, Split, and Glass.
Yep.
They are superheroes to a degree, but it is myths and legends also that he is drawing from to bring on. They're not superheroes in the technical way we see superheroes like an Iron Man or a Batman.
Yeah.
They're in this more fantasy world. What's interesting is, at least with IMDb, Unbreakable and Split do not have dark fantasy, but the last one has dark fantasy. Which my daughter was like, well, hold up. If the last one's called dark fantasy, doesn't that automatically make the... And I thought, probably their thinking is that we don't know this whole story in the first two until we get to the last one to find out, oh no, these people are in ways superheroes, villains, and there's a group who's out to try to kill them all and get rid of them. Spoiler alert.
Here's... I forget what the last one was called.
I even have it written down. Glass.
I think Glass is a lot more darker themed than Split and Unbreakable. I think Split might start veering into dark fantasy because it's also kind of a darker movie.
Yes.
Right? But I would see it. I do see it as fantasy, of course. And like falling within the hero genre as well.
Yes.
But I do think Glass might be because it's a revenge movie,
Well, yeah, I think it's I think for me the part where I include it is simply because M. Night Shyamalan puts a lot of folklore and fantasy in everything he does.
Yeah.
So therefore in many ways he is a somewhat of a, but it's more on the horror tip, the sci-fi tip, a lot of times.
I'm just saying of why IMDb might only see one as dark fantasy.
And that's what I assumed too, was just kind of like, not to mention, when those two got entered, nobody knew the third one was ever going to come out anyway, and it would kind of culminate to show us, no, this has been happening the whole time. You just didn't know. Even though I would argue, even in the first one, Unbreakable, I mean, that's the whole speech is Samuel Jackson gives him, is like, dude, if there's somebody who can't be broken, then there has to be someone who's always broken. We are the yin and the yang. This is how I know through also using comic books as a way to say, do you see how we exist, just like in comic books do?
Right.
So, again, somewhat of a stretch.
No, not at all.
I mean,
not at all.
I'd be willing to, if for others, I hear it. But for me, I think some of what I love about M. Night Shyamalan movies, like I wanted to, but again, it wasn't given. And I could see the argument against it. Like, I think to some degree, The Village is a fantasy movie.
Village is very much.
My daughter was saying, like, if the creatures were real, I definitely say fantasy, And I go, okay, yeah, I could hear that too. Again, as I said, fantasy's a tough one when you start chopping it up.
The Village plays into, again,
folklore and absolutely.
Folklore. There is also a surrealist where you're in your own environment, so a separate world than the outside world.
Again, I think if I were to give M. Night Shyamalan, his little what genres.
Yeah.
Obviously, horror would be one of them. Thriller would be another one, and I do think fantasy.
Oh yeah,
certainly with Lady in the Water. I think that is a
Lady
fantasy
in the Water
movie
is
in every sense of the word.
Classic fantasy, almost,
and I just those kind of things. And again, another one who's very hit or miss. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think when he hits, boy oh boy, he hits my spot every single time.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where it's just like, holy shit, did you fail? I mean, I touched on Airbender, and my daughter was like, Dad, if you include that, I'm gonna hate you, because my kids revere the Airbender cartoons.
Oh, believe me, I got younger brothers, so I grew up with Avatar.
That movie was the first one ever as a family we went to see, and my children suddenly became Siskel and Ebert on the way home about why this was a piece of shit and why we should never watch it again. So, they're very disappointed. But having said that, again, as far as fantasy movies, impactful especially, M. Night Shyamalan, he was my number 4. How about you?
My number 4 is Roger Corman.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So this is probably my more controversial one.
Okay.
He has directed The Undead, which is about a woman going back in time into medieval environments.
Okay. So reality. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Very much reality based. The Saga of the Viking Women.
Okay.
Which, it's kind of a... Roger Corman is known for making more B-movie and producing more B-movie stuff than he is for making. But Saga of the Viking Women is one of those kind of introductory, unfortunately this was the theme of the time, where the women were very scantily clad and whatnot. And
sex sells.
Yeah, of course. But you know how the 60s and 70s are.
A lot of exploitation.
A lot of exploitation,
Absolutely.
exactly. And he knew how much of it to sell exactly, and this was one of those entries. And it is a fantasy movie.
He was the more family Russ Myers in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Also a guy, if I may just real quick, Roger Corman also deserves a lot of credit for giving a lot of people their start.
Big time.
Ron Howard, mentioned. Martin Scorsese, Jack Nicholson. There's a lot of people through Roger Corman that got their start in Hollywood.
He was in the mix very early on.
Early on. And a man who absolutely will come in on budget no matter what
Big
it takes.
Time. Yeah, exactly.
And some of his movies show it.
Yeah. And so the last one that I have for him is The Mask of the Red Death, which is a Vincent Price movie. Also, an Edgar Allan Poe storyline.
That's what I was going to ask you.
And it can lean more horror, but it is also very surrealist. If you watch, especially Corman's take on it, it is, again, a fever dream of a movie, because lots of loud colors, the loud music.
Oh, yeah.
You get very confused.
Look, you say Poe, and I could go fantasy with Poe.
Oh, yeah, Poe is
I know
fantasy.
he's more horror, and I get that, but there's some fantasy in what...
Horror traits in fantasy?
No doubt. And he's dealing in folklores and so on and so forth, too. So great one. That's a nice little deep cut right there.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so we're number 3.
Top 3 now.
For my number 3, this is where I already knew who my 3 would be. It's just a matter of where I was placing them. But my number 3, I put is Peter Jackson. The Hobbits and the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
To me, again, the yeoman's task of being able to take Lord of the Rings, make 3 movies out of it. Everyone's better than the other. Absolutely.
Right.
And everyone's better than the other.
Yeah.
Everybody is every single person is practically perfectly cast. I mean, it's just, I still watch those movies and still am blown away by them every time I watch them.
Yeah.
They're so good. And I just think he really killed it. The Hobbit is, unfortunately, had to live up to The Lord of the Rings. I think it would have been better as 2 movies than 3, but either way, I very much enjoy them. I think they're fantastic. And the way he can just balance every part of those movies where it doesn't feel so fantasy that it's like whimsical, but can still have moments that are at the same time always remembering the danger of all that they're doing. It's amazing. Creating the worlds. I mean, again, these are worlds created by our Lord J.R.R. Tolkien. Yes. But to bring them to life, to give them the visual off the page the way he has done, I mean, good God, man. I mean, if he never directs anything else again, we were done here. This is one of the greats of all time.
One can say he's not directing because now he's like on documentaries now.
It's kind of, I imagine to some degree, it's like, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do that's better than that? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the bar I've set for myself is so damn high. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the standard of expectation.
Absolutely,
right?
Man. Which is interesting considering who my top 2 are 2 people who've continued to, the bar sets high and they just keep beating it or have beat it in the past.
Yeah.
So that was my number 3. How about you?
My number 3 is Terry Gilliam.
There we go.
Yeah. Big old tear. Of course, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I forgot what the other one. That
Time
I put
Bandit.
Down. Time Bandits.
I mean, that we've talked about it a million times. The impact on us as kids. HBO playing that 18 times a day. I mean,
he did start off with a movie called Jabberwocky, which once I was well versed on the world of Gilliam, I had to go back and look for that one.
Sure.
As a younger person, and I can see why this guy gets tasked with. Again, you give him a storyline, and he's gonna give you a world.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Even when it's like something like The Fisher King.
The Fisher King is great.
You know what I mean? It's like, technically, I don't need the fantasy parts of it. It would still be an amazing movie. Yep. And yet, his interjection of them never feel weird or out of place. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry Gilliam's, he has so many that fit into so many different places. You know what I mean? Sci-fi, well, okay, give me 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys.
You know what I mean? And meanwhile, fantasy is just, because if I may, he's my number 2. So we'll go right.
Yeah, hey.
We'll continue to talk about him.
And I don't mind that at all.
Brothers Grimm. I had Fisher King. I had Time Bandits. The Appearance of Baron Munchausen. The Imaginarium of whatever
Dr.
the rest
Parnassus.
of that. Yes. I mean, the guy just another one too that. Once you see enough of him, you'll always recognize what he's doing.
Yeah.
Also, as a Monty Python fan, finding it very cool that he's coming out of that, and this is what he creates. His little cartoons for Monty Python were always a little, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which says a lot considering you're already watching Monty Python going, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So, it's so cool to see him get this second career and then just make movies that are so timeless in many ways. You know what I mean? Like I said, the impact of Time Bandits and stuff like that, I can't even be. He may be the one who, especially with Time Bandits, would have introduced me to the idea of dark fantasy. That it wasn't just, fairy tales and that sort of thing. Because Time Bandits would have been a very early movie for me. So yeah, Terry Gilliam's my number 2 because I think he is just one of the all-time greats. And when I think fantasy films, he's definitely one of the first names that comes to my mind. How about your number 2?
My number 2 is the other half of Studio Ghibli, Mr. Hayao Miyazaki. Again, this guy is a person who creates, and everything he touches is gold.
Right.
Absolutely everything. He has famously made Spirited Away, which I think is people's first introduction to his work.
I would say Studio Ghibli in general, I think is probably the one, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the one that
certainly for Americans.
Of course, yeah. And then of course he has Howl's Moving Castle, which is a great book. It's a children's book, and his take on it is amazing. Famously, Christian Bale is the voice lead in that one. Princess Mononoke is another one. The Boy and the Heron was one of his latest ones, which is about his youth, but it's told through Japanese mythic storytelling,
right?
Which is already incredibly epic in scale, and reach. His way of telling his fantasy is where like the fantasy actually pours into reality,
right.
You know, so something like Tarsem Singh and Jodorowsky and these other people. At one point, I am very safe in saying like, they probably saw one of Miyazaki's films and were like, "Oh, we're gonna do our version of that too."
Oh, I'm
sure where the fantasy crawls into our reality and we can't make sense of it. So
I have a feeling these guys a lot of these dudes are watching each other's films.
I would hope so,
especially when you're doing this kind of movie watching in general, or movie making, I should say.
Yeah.
I imagine they're very influenced by each other in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic one.
Big one, number 1.
I imagine this is going to be your number 1 because I haven't heard you say his name yet. So we may just go into a full-blown suck-off fest for this guy.
Okay, let's see.
Mr. Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, yes. Once again, Aaron and I, in conjunction.
I had a hard time putting Mr. Gilliam second, mainly because he would have been my first. He would have been the more impactful in that way. But when I looked at who put out more of the fantasy, it was Guillermo del Toro. And I think he has done it in ways that had never been done before. I recently sent you that clip that I thought was fantastic, where somebody asked him, your ability to mix fantasy and beautifulness with horror, how could you do that? And he's just like, because I'm Mexican. Look at our lives. Look how we live. Look at our religions. On and on and on. This is what shapes us. This is who we are. We see both in the world. And I just think not only does he see it, he puts it to film. Pan's Labyrinth, especially.
Pan's Labyrinth, yeah.
If you talk about taking the fantasy film and flipping it on its head.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Wizard of Oz in many ways,
Sure.
and yet it is nothing like
Yeah,
melting
yeah.
a witch. I wish that's all we were going to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's his ability to do these things when you look at stuff like, again, Hellboy.
Hellboy. Yeah.
That's where he won me. I didn't know who Guillermo del Toro was.
Right.
I saw the Hellboy movies and was just like, these are some of my all-time favorite movies. And I have said this before when it comes to the Hellboy movies. I love Hellboy 1. I love Hellboy 2. But Hellboy 2, when they go in to the fantasy world there with all the fairy, like, dude, that is the modern day cantina scene of Star Wars.
Yeah.
He has literally created his own world in this thing using myths and legends and on and on.
Yeah.
You know, even something like Pacific Rim to a degree is fantasy.
I was about to say,
You know what I mean?
I put Pacific Rim down as one of my entries.
I would have put it more in the action, but he's using myths and legends to do it anyway because he's fighting these underground monsters that have come to destroy the earth. You know,
but if you think about it, it's the hero saving the castle from the threat,
100%
in armor,
and that's
which is the big robot,
and
right?
that's the beauty of what he does, right?
Yeah.
He can take these. He turned the creature from the Black Lagoon into a romantic movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know
Shape
if
of
any.
Water, by the
I
way.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know if anybody else could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, by the way, there's still fucking scary horror parts in the goddamn
Oh
movie.
yeah, for sure. I mean, he made Frankenstein a more romantic kind of
Victorian-
gothic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, which is what it is.
It is
technically.
but
you know,
when we think of Frankenstein as, let's be honest, especially movie wise,
Right.
We think of that 30s
20s,
film.
yeah.
It's alive. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's nothing particularly gothic about that, as much as like, you know, it's an old castle, but it's a black and white and it's horror. You know,
Right.
one of the fathers of horror.
Yep.
Maybe the book feels more that way, as someone who didn't read the book, but he turned it into a thing that you're absolutely right. Great point. Turns it into this epic gothic tale,
Yeah.
and the colors that he uses and the palettes of it. Just, you know, Crimson Peak, I think an
Crimson Peak.
underrated movie of his. Talk about fantasy and then putting it in this gothic style and
Yeah.
everything else. Like, again, he is the master. He's one of the greats. He's one of those ones that you go, I'm happy to be alive in a time where we have a Guillermo del Toro and all that he is creating for us to see, because I never tire of his shit.
Yeah.
It's just so amazing the things he's able to do.
Yeah, he is one of the ones who, you know, I always come back to.
Yeah.
There's no going wrong with any of the movies. I mean, even like Devil's Backbone and stuff like that. You know, which is a ghost story, but it's also, again, because if you look at it now with the perspective that you started off with the quote like, you know, what is it about mixing fantasy and horror? Being Mexican is because he sees that in his everyday.
Every day.
Like his everyday is filled with fantastical and these things that other people would just kind of gloss over.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, when you gloss over something and ignore it, they become ghosts.
Absolutely.
And that's what the Devil's Backbone's about, right?
And it's also this idea that you're scared of him, but then when you realize what this kid is and what has happened, you empathize. You feel sad for him.
Exactly.
How am I crying at a horror film?
Yep.
You know what I mean? I should be watching people just get killed.
Yeah.
You know? And no, it's...
He is by far one of my absolute favorites.
Oh, yeah.
I love him. One day I hope to meet him. One day I hope to work with him somehow I'll be his gopher. I don't know. Whatever.
Dude. Just to be in his presence for 10 minutes. Like
it would be awesome.
That documentary that was on Netflix was unbelievable.
It was amazing.
It was so cool. And he's such just an interesting person altogether.
Yeah.
And yet not in any way pretentious.
Not at all.
Not
at all.
He's really just down-to-earth dude, man.
I love that his house where he kept a bunch of his collection is called the Bleak House, you know, which is fucking amazing. He has two of them now.
Yeah, that was again, Mr. Jackson, Gilliam, and Del Toro. I already knew we were going to be on this list. It's just a matter of where I was going to place them, and there's no right or wrong for me with those three as far as where to place them. But Mr. Del Toro is just, it's unbelievable. Like even movies that are like Blade 2.
Blade 2, yeah.
It's like it's got his stamp on there.
There's
a little bit there,
of course.
Mimic has got a little bit of them there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's just like it's so cool to see what he's been allowed to do and just what when his imagination runs wild and what he can do with it.
Even the what was it called, Nightmare Alley?
Yeah,
like it is by all I forget what the phrase
accounts.
is. Accounts, yeah. By all accounts, it's a noir film, but it is such a dark movie where it's like, well, is this real? Like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's got, again, you could argue. I think the beauty of that is they are led to believe there are fantastical things going on, but they're actually not.
They're actually not.
These people are nothing more than scammers the entire time.
Yep.
But yes, it feels more like a crime noir kind of thing with him. But again, it's unfortunately sometimes it is also the reputation. You see Guillermo del Toro and you think, oh, here we go, and that's why I love when he subverts. I love when I think that's why a Nightmare Alley sticks out, because you go, oh, this is unlike. He could have done Pan's Labyrinth 5 other times, and we all would have been happy. But he's like, well, I could just go this way.
Let me just try this other thing.
And I think that's the other beauty of it. Directors like him who, when it's their movie, and yet they can do different styles of movies, or at least different versions of it, and it never feels stale. I said, he's amazing.
He is also a movie director who is not shy about talking about his influences. For my list, I am very grateful to him that he is very vocal about his love of Hayao Miyazaki's movies.
Right.
So he, I think he might have even worked with him on the one video game that they put out.
Okay.
The Ghosts of, I don't remember. It's a Japanese name, which I'm not going to insult anybody by trying to remember. But yeah, like he knows how far-reaching the works of these other people are, and he is none too afraid to like drop their name and saying like, oh yeah, this is what I was taking in at this time.
Well, you get that sense that he's as much of a fan as he is a director.
Big time, yes.
You know what I mean? Like he
is one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. He's over here, getting crazy about this next Peter Jackson movie or whoever.
Yeah,
Robert Eggers. He likes, oh man, that one, I got to go see it.
Yeah,
just as much as the rest of us.
Yep.
Whether it influences him or it's just because he enjoys it. You know what I mean? And I just, like I said, he just an all around seems like a really great guy, and just like the passion of what he does oozes out of everything he really does, and they feel so singular. And Pan's Labyrinth especially. I knew who he was at that point, but it just so stuck out the moment you watched it. It's like, what am I watching, man? This is so outrageous. And also, I would say with the Pan's Labyrinth, the thing that's interesting is to be able to create creatures in this day and age that actually feel fresh and that you don't feel like you've seen before.
Yep.
It's really hard, you know what I mean? And and again, taking from myths and legends, the little tooth fairies, in Hellboy. You go, oh, tooth fairies. Like, no. You don't want those tooth fairies. Like, I love that,
And also in Hellboy 2, quoting Conan the Barbarian.
Yes. Wow.
With now you'll know why they fear the dark.
Yes.
Now you know why they fear the night. Yeah.
And again, I'd be shocked if he wasn't a fan. Again,
oh yeah, he's
can't say enough about him.
He's a fan of everything awesome in the world, and he is also one of the things awesome in the world. So yeah,
100%.
Number one, no surprise, Aaron and I once again mind melded, as we have many times.
Well, again, there were many ones. I was like, another one that I'm not surprised it wasn't on your list.
Yeah,
but I know we're both bummed that we couldn't get it on there. Is Legend.
Dude, thank you for saying this. Ridley Scott almost made it, because at one point I was like, Gladiator's it's not a historical movie. Like, it's got shit that happened at points, but none of it happened, and none of it is real.
I think if I may put my devil's advocate hat on,
sure,
is to say that feels more sword and sandal and less fantasy, where like Conan has got witches. Conan has got cults. You know what I mean? Whereas this is more trying to be more grounded in the idea of the Roman empires and so on and so forth.
You're getting into literary terms now, my friend, which is very dangerous to do with me. Sword and sandal is a genre that I'm very familiar with.
Right.
Ben-Hur, blah, 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 right?
Sure.
But in Gladiator, the scenarios that happened don't actually happen for real. They are fantastical.
Oh
events,
yeah, no,
right?
Yes, especially number 2. My God.
Yeah. I didn't even include that one. Yeah. I was gonna go probably go with Blade Runner, Gladiator, and Legend. Where Legend is his only actual classical fantasy movie.
That believe me, that was another one where I go, well, how am I going to do this without putting Legend on here?
Right. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, Blade Runner, yes, but let's be honest, it's also the granddaddy of sci-fi in the modern world.
Yeah.
And then everything else I looked at was like, Kingdom of Heaven, it's more historical.
See, but even that one,
I
that
know
one
he plays.
falls into the Gladiator thing, where he's using real life events.
He plays with the rules a lot of times, like the Napoleon movie for sure. You know what I mean?
Exodus was
Yes.
another one. Did he make that Noah movie?
I don't remember.
The one with Russell, I think Russell Crowe's on the Noah movie.
Well, here's one he definitely made that you could definitely put in, I think, to some degree in fantasy, though again, I think it's more on the Gladiator side of fantasy, which was the Robin Hood movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which I didn't like, so that's why another reason why I excluded it.
Yeah.
But the reason I felt the only thing that made me feel okay is he has been well represented in many other episodes.
Many others, yeah.
We have more than given this man his flowers.
Oh,
we could do an entire episode on him alone with his how much we love him and his many films.
Yep.
But yes, Legend was an omission that when you didn't mention, I thought, oh wow, how is he going to squeeze Legend in here? Because
Dude, believe
I see how hard it was. Believe me,
I if I had to, I would have put Gladiator and again maybe Blade Runner, maybe Exodus, because Exodus is of course built on the whole storyline of the Bible, which, let's face it, folks, also a fantasy book, you know. So if that were going to be enough to qualify, then he would have been on this list, but they're not. Legend being his only actual fantasy movie. Yeah. You know.
For a director who has gotten his props many times.
Many times.
If this was the only way I could squeeze him in, I'd have fucking done it.
Yeah.
Especially because, again, how impactful Legend was on the two of us.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe on fantasy films in general.
Yep.
You know? But one that has been well represented in other places. But
Big time.
You know, look, again, as I said, this one was by far the toughest one.
I love this one.
As I look at the rest of them, I'm realizing, this will be my hardest one for sure. The rest of them I'm going to have a much easier time with.
This one I had fun with. This is my, one of my breads and butters. My next one, which I think is our next genre.
I believe will be. Let me see. I can look it up.
E, F, G, whatever G.
I don't think there's a G. Let me see. Let me look it up right now. Come on, hurry up, stinking computer.
Which I wouldn't mind going for a G, but there is an H after that.
Yeah, I think horror is going to be
and
our
it's
next
horror.
One.
Baby.
I'm almost positive.
All right, cool.
Horror will be our our next ones will be horror. We go to sci-fi, and then we go thriller. That'll be
horror, sci-fi, thriller. Awesome. All the good ones.
Since we decided Western wasn't really, we like some, but we don't have enough. Certainly in the director area.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be into doing Western as is there like a today's National Western Day or something?
I think for me again is I'm not a huge Western guy. There's probably 5 or 6 Western that are called Western movies that I enjoy. I like 3:10 to Yuma, the remake. I enjoy the Unforgiven, but beyond that, I am not.
Tombstone.
Yeah, absolutely. But 2 Mules for Sister Sarah and shit like that. Like I'm good, dude. Jeremiah Johnson, not really my thing. I'm just they don't really do much for me.
Weirdly enough, to go off on a little tangent.
Please.
I do like a lot of Western movies. A lot of the spaghetti Westerns. The Django and Django
no doubt,
Ride to Man and stuff like that.
For a few dollars more,
$few more. Yeah, the dollar series, the trilogy now.
I think the problem with those, like I said, the problem with that ultimately would be how am I going to find 10 directors on a genre I barely watch anyway?
I think if if we come up we ever get asked, hey, what are your 10 actual favorite Western movies? We have an argument there. But,
absolutely.
But top 10 Western directors?
No way.
I'm sorry.
Not in a million years.
Yeah.
And since we're on this kind of thing, we did get an email from listener Ty who asked us about whether or not we would ever do biopics.
Right. Yeah.
So I will answer, and obviously I will let you. My only thing with biopics is I am not a huge fan of them for the most part. I have watched plenty of them. I think the best biopic is actually the one that made fun of everybody's and kind of put the coffin nail into him for about 10 years, which is the Dewey Cox movie. My biggest problem with most of them are, especially we are finding out more and more, these directors seem to be more worried about telling a story than actually telling the story.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10 when I watch a biopic, I pretty much just walk away going, okay, how much of that is for the movie and how much of that did actually happen?
Right.
And thinking to myself, I'd much rather watch a documentary about this person than ever watch this movie again because I probably learn a whole hell of a lot more about this person.
Yeah.
Having said that, there are some great ones out there. The first one that comes to my mind would be Malcolm X. I think that's a fantastic biopic. Spike Lee and Denzel are probably at their peaks at that moment. But unfortunately, then you run into shit like, American Sniper, where it's just like, well, that could have made our fantasy list in many ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's where I come down on biopics as if we're going to call it, if we call it as a genre.
Yeah.
I would have a problem with it mainly because I'm not a fan, because 9 times out of 10, as I said, I walk away saying, this last one, the Queen one.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Jesus Christ, they couldn't even get a timeline right. And it's like, this really happened.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And the directors just came out and said, well, we're telling a story. It's more about a movie than, like, well, then don't call it a fucking biopic.
And that actually leads into why I probably wouldn't want to do a top 10 biopics list, because it is a dramatized version of the story. So in one way they're trying to preserve whatever the public holds in favor, much like the Michael movie that just came out,
Right.
Michael Jackson's been involved in some kind of not that great things in his life, and if it's not going to be mentioned, then we're not being honest here, right?
I think that's it, right? Like, who's telling the story? Do we want to do warts and all? Do we want to do the, for as shitty as that Queen movie kind of was in some ways, it did show warts and all. I mean, it showed
to a degree,
his drug addictions, his sex addictions, and the things that led to his kind of ego and so on and so forth. Okay, good. It didn't just paint this pretty picture of like, we're Queen and now we're popular and now he's dead. You know what I mean? It's like, Johnny Cash's one kind of, to a degree, did the same thing. But again, they want to tell a story, which I'm fine with. I get it. You're making a movie. I totally understand. And by the way, there's no fucking way I could tell this whole person's 80 years life in
that's
one
another
movie.
thing. You're compressing 80 years into, roughly 2.5 hours, right?
And I totally get that.
Which is tough.
I'm not upset about it. It's just to say, when I am being told this is a biopic, then I want to feel like I learned something. And I get more out of that with either a documentary or a book or something like that. It goes, hey, we can take our time here. We don't have to.
I'm going to be the person that always pushes. If you want to learn about somebody, read 3 books on the person.
Yeah, I just think that those are given more of an ability to tell the whole story.
Right, yeah.
Whereas, I'm not saying books and documentaries don't care about entertaining. It's just to say, big blockbuster movies want to get your butt in the seat.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
They're trying to sell tickets, sell popcorn and stuff, which, again, I love taking them in.
Sure.
I don't ever go back and say, like, well, what the Ray movie told me.
You're right. I certainly don't walk away from them and go, well, I am an expert now on all things, the Doors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like no, absolutely not.
I know everything there is to know about JFK.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Jesus. You know what I mean? So, yeah, those are those things where it's just like when, and by the way, the other one that I think kind of really fucked shit up is, thank you, Fargo, for telling everybody it's based on a true story.
Oh, yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? So, if you can just do that in movies, then, come on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I think there's some that have been made that are very well made. They're
Sure.
good movies.
Yeah.
It's just, I usually stay away from them because if it's somebody I'm interested in, I'd much rather just read something about them or go ahead and watch a documentary about them.
I think if we were to include biopics, they would probably fall under the drama category.
For sure.
And
because otherwise, what's a biopic?
Exactly, right? But also, like,
the boring life of this rock musician. Nobody wants to watch that shit.
Yeah.
I need drugs and sex addiction. What are we doing here?
Yeah. So thanks, Ty, for the email.
Absolutely.
I know you've contacted us a couple of times, and I think one of them we actually did an episode on, right? Like the first email that he had sent out to us.
I think it was the Heretic.
That's right, Heretic. Yeah. So please, if you have any other ideas, keep them coming.
And that is it's rehearsal room
pod
at
gmail.com. Okay. Yeah. Again, let us know. We won't take every suggestion up and make an episode out of it, but we'll certainly discuss it. And if we don't do it, we'll give you a decent reason why.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thanks again.
Yeah.
Aaron, what have you been listening to?
Well, a little look behind the camera here. It's only been a week since our last one, so I haven't really gotten too deep, but it gave me a chance to actually go back and do what I had been doing throughout the year, and it was kind of my New Year's resolution was to try to go back on some older stuff and just get a little deeper into those. So I definitely got to do that this week. Czarface, who I very much love. I've gotten to listen to 3 or 4 more albums from them. They have a new one coming out, I believe in August. I'm damned if I can remember the name of it, but the talk is, I don't know if you know this. Goddamn, now I'm forgetting his name. Bane and Mad Max. What's his name?
Tom Hardy.
Thank you very much. The rumor is Tom Hardy has actually been an undercover rapper for the last 10 or 15 years. And been doing it with Czarface.
Yeah.
This next album that is coming out, Freddie something or other has overtaken Czarface. One day I'm on Instagram and it just says Freddie, whatever the character's name is.
Yeah.
This is my Instagram now. I now own it. If you can't understand why, then you don't know Czarface or something. They're doing this whole thing again. As I've said before, Czarface is fantastic.
Yeah.
It is very comic book esque.
Yep.
Even the ones they do, it's Ghostface versus MF Doom.
Yeah.
Ghostface versus Czarface versus Ghostface. So it's the idea heroes colliding or hero
Characters,
and villains.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it follows this theme. Fucking awesome. I absolutely love that group.
Yeah.
So very looking forward to that because apparently Tom Hardy did have a rap group very early on. Then you can find some stuff of this. But yeah, he's technically been, there are many people who believe he has been secretly rapping with Czarface on little bits and pieces of albums this entire time.
That's cool.
Yeah. I hope that rumor turns out to be true. Another one that I definitely caught up with, I think, to me, maybe the best rap duo of all time, certainly in my opinion, of the 90s, which is Gangstar. I mean, DJ Premier is probably the number one, certainly of the 90s. And then Guru, I think, at times can be a little underrated because of how good Premier really is. But I love the two of them together. Gangstar is just one of my all-time favorite groups when it comes to hip-hop, especially the 90s stuff. So it was fun catching up on them. Another one, Rollins Band. I actually finally got their first album. I got that on Tuesday. So I was which I heard it a bunch of times, but I'd never owned the damn thing. And certainly I'm not going to own the original pressing of that. That's for goddamn sure. So I did get the repress, which is actually kind of cool. It comes with some outtakes, one of them being Tearing. An early version of Tearing.
Cool.
Yeah. Which I was like, wow, 3 albums away from actually releasing this shit.
Yeah.
Demos and stuff like that. Very cool album. I love Rollins Band.
Yep.
I love Henry Rollins. I think he's one of the all-time greats in every sense of the word. I love his vocals. I love his style. And I love, especially the early Rollins Band shit. I just can never get enough of it, man.
Yeah.
Those were impactful records on me. Wait and End of Silence especially were just major. It was one of those bands along with Helmet, and I know this sounds silly to some people, and so be it, but they were those bands that taught me, it doesn't have to be metal to be heavy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've said this before. People are like, oh, yeah, what about punk? It's like, well, I wasn't a punk kid, so it didn't really, I know that sounds silly in the moment, but, early on, it was like, oh, this is heavy,
right?
But it's not metal. What is this exactly? And it's like, oh, it has elements of metal for sure, but it's just like, I love that, that kind of 90s vibe in general, where it was like, I don't know where to put these bands. And Rollins Band is definitely one of those ones, like metalheads dug them, alternative kids dug them, punk kids dug them. Like they were all over the place. There was
experimental, jazzy kids.
Very much so, right? Yeah. And yet also heavy blues shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So love Rollins Band. 2 new ones I actually did find. One I sent you.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Sneech, I think is kind of how you say it. So they're from Prague. Obviously, this is a different language. S-N-E with a umlaut over the top, and T's got another line over the top of it. So it means gangrene or smut is what I found out.
Yeah.
I'm not even about to try this fucking album title because, my God. Dark Descent, I believe, has it. So did the other label. Was it Marco? It's an English label, but which I always thought was a Spanish label because of the title of it. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
But fucking great. My kind of death metal in every sense of the word. I really, really dug. Like it's just the tone, the feel of it, everything, man. So the way I found it was. Apparently, they have a new album that's coming out. Misako un Ojo?
Masako un ojo.
Oh, there you go.
I take out an eye. I remove an eye.
Okay. I'm glad one of us knows how to read. Anyway, so they actually released, I believe, this album that I heard, and is going to release the next album along with Dark Descent. Death metal out of Prague. Holy shit. It's fucking great. Heavy, dark, good atmosphere, good, what do I want to say? What do we call it? When it's kind of like you get a little heavy part, you get a kind of a quieter parts, good balance in that way. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't just straight up like just, all the way through. Like it just a lot of, what do you call it? Balance in that way. And I really, really dug. So I've been listening to that one. And the last one, thank you to a friend of the show and our last guest, Pete. He actually posted this. It says an album he was really addicted to. So I was like, hey, it's good enough for Pete. It's good enough for my ears. Excuse me. Let me check it out. Dagmar Zuniga.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I saw this.
So, in filth, your mystery is kingdom. Far smile peasant in yellow music.
Yeah.
I should give you some idea about what you're about to listen to. To be honest with you, I very much dug it. I would say the way I would describe it, I actually, 2 songs in, sent it to my wife because I figured she'd probably dig it. This is how I described it to her. Think early Chelsea Wolfe mixed with grouper, but also feels like it's some kind of found audio. So a lot of tape hiss, a lot of pops and stuff like that going on. It's very underproduced in that way, purposely so. Kind of like early Chelsea Wolfe, kind of like some grouper stuff, where it feels like they're like on a Tascam kind of, you know what I mean? They're recording in 1980. Beautiful voice. The other part, the reason I would say the kind of found audio is I have to listen to it some more, and I could be reading into it, but it feels like it starts kind of nice and this gets darker and darker with each song. And I kind of like that little journey of like, almost like, wait, I don't know if she's singing about good stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, really, really dug it. It's on Bandcamp. It's on Spotify. I think it's on most places you can find it. But
cool.
Those are only 2 new discoveries, but really good ones. And I would highly recommend both of them.
Nice.
How about yourself?
A lot of punk.
Right on. What'd you call me?
I said a lot of punk. A lot of Japanese stuff at first, or Japanese, I guess Japanese adjacent.
Okay.
SOB. These are all like Japanese hardcore anarcho punk bands from the 80s, 90s. I'm horrible with album names, so I'm just going to tell you
most of them I got to write down, believe me.
Yeah. So SOB, The Comes, Kuro, Kuro,
okay.
Gizm. If you were to look at like kind of the more influential Japanese hardcore punk bands, these are the ones that will pop up.
Gizm for sure. I know that name.
100%. Yeah, they're probably like the outmost more popular one. But the other ones are, brutal, heavy, angry, real chaotic music, really artistic as well, like in their presentation.
Okay.
And these are like the punks that kind of spiky hair, charged up hair and everything, And then an adjacent kind of Asian band is Crucifix, who were actually from California.
Oh.
They had an album in the 80s called Dehumanization, which I love.
Right on.
Crucifix is awesome. I think people that subscribed to the older Maximum Rock and Roll kind of recommendations, heard of Crucifix through one of the comps that they put out, and they're a band that stayed with me a long time.
Right on.
Yeah. And then have you heard of a band called Blind Idiot God?
That name does sound familiar, although I've probably been called that, so it's very possible.
I've been called the first part.
I was going to say, at least one
the
of those
first couple of parts.
One of those words.
Blind and Idiot. Yeah, so this band is kind of noise rocky.
Oh, okay.
The singer sounds very much like Henry Rollins.
Oh, okay.
I think you would really dig them.
Blind Idiot God, okay.
Yeah. Check them out. They're from like Missouri or Wisconsin, one of those. Okay. But yeah, I think they have a couple albums. They're awesome. I was just listening to the one that was available on the most evil of all platforms.
Is there one that's boring? Oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Our daddy.
They're in races for to
daddy.
See who's the most evil.
Exactly. Yeah, our daddy Warbucks
yes.
that we host this podcast on. But yeah, Blind Idiot God was another one. A lot of early Swans,
that was one Filth. I was listening to that. Yeah. That I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, Swans. I come back to that band a lot because I know, they're just, for me, they're a band that, does so much in so many different styles.
Well, so influential on so many other bands I love.
Yeah.
I have tried with them. I define nothing that I don't like, but I don't know. I wonder if I had found them earlier, if they'd be more impactful. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not understanding, like, everything you love, these guys were doing way before. You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Filth, weirdly, is an album I go back to probably more than any of their other stuff.
I mean, it's not a bad one to go back to at all, so.
Great band.
I mean, Swans is awesome. And I maybe the last one that I'll talk about
please.
is I went back to kind of the roots of Mexican death metal.
Right on.
It's a band that I know a lot of people know and make fun of the name. It's trans metal.
Okay.
They have an album called Dante's Inferno, but in Spanish it's Infierno de Dante.
Okay.
It's very death doomy in that there's no blast beats.
Okay.
It's very just actually the drums are very hard rock kind of drums.
Interesting.
So the most you'll get is a double kick,
okay,
but a really steady snare and hi-hat. No blast beats, tons of great heavy guitar. Death metal vocals, and of all people, Glenn Benton makes a surprise appearance.
Now the name Trans Metal.
Trans Metal.
What is there? I mean, it's an interest. I mean, is it a how do I want to say? Is it not interpretation, but translation thing? Like, when I hear trans metal, I'm thinking of the trans and like. If you told me, hey, I got this death metal band called Trans Metal, I would never have guessed trans metal as a death metal band.
You'd probably associate it with something to do with
like hard rock or power metal or something. You know what I mean? Like,
so
it feels like speeds coming your way.
The other guys, I think, come out of how in metal now there's hard rock, there's metal, then there's there's hard rock, there's heavy metal, then there's metal, right?
I gotcha.
So these guys all come from the heavy metal part of it, which is, there's other bands like Rata Blanca, Ángeles del Infierno, which are very hard rock, heavy metal-ish.
I gotcha.
So I like thinking that the lore is this is the transitionary part between that and something heavier.
All right.
Which Transmetal is a heavier band.
I gotcha.
Maybe not by the standards of what we apply to death metal now.
But in that moment, there felt like a transition between. Yeah. Okay. No, I love that. That's cool. I just you mentioned that many people make fun of the name, but I was just wondering, is there a translation thing where it's like if you understood it in Spanish or either way? It was just to say that is an interesting name, especially like I said, if you just wrote it down and said what do they play, I would have said heavy metal or power metal. I would have never said death metal. Yeah.
You look at them and you think oh, this is just rocker guys.
Gotcha.
So
interesting.
And I think also people maybe nowadays more, especially with the way things are anymore.
Sure.
People look at the name, they're like, oh, trans metal. And they think of something that has to do either with sexuality or non-binary issues. But, it's not the case at all.
No.
They have...
The word trans did exist before,
Exactly, right? So
maybe they just like transmissions.
Maybe.
They're mechanics.
Well, because they're Mexican? Or what?
I didn't say it out loud.
No, I said it.
I was just thinking it. Because I'm not a racist. I was just thinking it.
No, these guys, I think because they were one of the first bands that got really popular with this style.
Okay.
Of course, haters are going to hate, and everything really evolved quickly when it came to heavier music. Right?
I gotcha.
So the fact that they've stuck to their guns as far as being that type of death metal, I've always enjoyed them.
Right on.
But Infierno de Dante, their first album is really good.
All right. Yeah. I'd never. That's news to me. I'd never heard of them. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'd never. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If you ever want something that's definitely not as slow as Funeral Doom.
I gotcha.
But it's just maybe, mid-paced death metal, no blast beats, and have it on. Yeah, it's cool.
Right on.
But yeah, that's what we've been checking out. Let us know if you have any recommendations, folks. Again, for movies, music, anything at all. We love hearing from you folks.
For sure.
Any criticisms, any suggestions, anything you got. But yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Later.
Howdy, folks. Thank you so much for spending time with us here at the rehearsal room. If you've got any recommendations you'd like for us to check out, whether it's a band, a movie, or anything else you think we'd be interested in, you can write to us at therehearsalroompod@gmail.com, all one word. We're also over on Instagram or Facebook, or even YouTube. You can also find us on any of the popular platforms for podcasts. And if you happen to know anybody that would be interested in any of the subjects we're talking about, please make sure to refer this show over to them. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to us, and we'll catch you soon.